Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Dusharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatyade Siddharna. So today we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9. Beginning with text number 24. Aham hi sarva jagnanam bhokta cha or eva cha etumam abhijananti tadvena taschayanti te. I'm the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is clearly stated that there are many types of yajna performances recommended in the Vedic literatures, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yajna means Vishnu. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly stated that one should only work for satisfying yajna or Vishnu. The perfectional form of human civilization, known as Varnashram Dharma, is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says in this verse, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, because I am the Supreme Master. Less intelligent persons, however, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, for although it is not pure devotion, he will thus achieve the desired result. In this particular verse, Krishna uses the word tadvena. This word is used in many parts of the Bhagavad Gita. In one of the most in the Pratibhasha Sutra of Bhagavad Gita, which is 9, chapter 4, text number 9, Krishna also uses the word tattva. Janma karma shamedivyam evam yoveti tattvata tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimam eti sorjana. There Krishna says, Janma, to know how Krishna has appeared. That Krishna is not an ordinary personality. And therefore, we ourselves being in this human form of life, we have an opportunity to understand something about Krishna in truth, in reality. But we can't understand anything or everything about Krishna, because Krishna is just so inconceivably great that even the liberated souls, they don't understand everything about Krishna. But at least we can understand something about the tattva of Krishna. And if one understands Krishna in truth, then one can make progress towards reality. But without understanding the reality of Krishna, one cannot understand the reality of anything else. Just like if you want to find out about your family, it's a good thing to find out about who your father is. You may find out everything about your brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles, but one's knowledge about the family will be incomplete unless one understands about who your father is and also who the mother is. Therefore, the Vedic literature says that yomam evam asambuddho janati purushottama sasarvavit pujandemam sarva bhavena bharata. Krishna says, one who understands me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yomam evam asambuddho, without doubting. Now, we happen to be in the material energy, so if we have doubts, that's part of being in the material energy. It's not possible to be in the material energy and not have doubts. Just like if you walk into a dark room, it's not possible to know everything about what's going on in the room if it's dark. Therefore, one may speculate about what's happening in the room because one cannot see factually what's going on. So it's normal for the conditioned soul to have doubts. As a matter of fact, that's what it means to be in the conditioned life. But Maya is always trying to increase our doubts, specifically in relation to Krishna. Maya is always trying to convince us that Krishna is not very important, and it's not very important to understand Krishna. And therefore, we wonder, since I don't experience Krishna consciousness at the present moment, and I want to experience something, maybe I should experience sense gratification. Of course, in the future, I might become Krishna conscious, but in the meantime, why not have a little experience in sense gratification to pass the time while I'm becoming Krishna conscious? So this is, Maya is always telling us, well, the process of Krishna consciousness is very gradual, so why worry about Krishna consciousness? It's so gradual. You can always do it tomorrow. You have plenty of time. So why don't you enjoy a little bit of sense gratification, and tomorrow you can take up the process of Krishna consciousness again, and gradually you can become Krishna conscious. So Maya is yogas chalati manasa, always trying to bewilder us into thinking, because the process of Krishna consciousness is gradual, therefore I should take it as gradually as possible. And the more we think like that, the more gradual it becomes. The more we think that I can enjoy sense gratification and at the same time gradually understand Krishna, the more we become bewildered by illusion. And because of that mentality, therefore we think that Krishna consciousness is very difficult to obtain, because we've convinced ourselves that it's difficult to obtain, and therefore we don't try to obtain it. Instead of becoming convinced that if I gradually take up the process, then gradually it'll become, Krishna will give me more and more revelation, and as the revelations come, then the devotional process becomes more and more easy and sublime. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to meet Krishna personally, and therefore he went to the forest. And he didn't think, well, I'm only 5 years old, so let me stay in the forest, and when I get 10 years old, then I'll try to realize Krishna. Let me adjust to the forest life for 5 years, and then afterwards, when I'm comfortable in the forest, then I could try for Krishna consciousness. Just like in our movement, the devotees used to say that or Prabhupada would say that if you just distribute my books, then Krishna will provide everything else. And now sometimes the devotees say, if you just get everything else, then we'll be able to distribute Prabhupada's books. So tatvena tastvayantite, if we're convinced in truth that Krishna exists and that he can provide us whatever we need, at least for our devotional service, then we could put aside so many other objectives and simply concentrate our minds on Krishna. And when we concentrate our minds upon Krishna, then we can experience Krishna. Then Krishna reveals himself. And then we know Krishna in truth by experience. Otherwise, Krishna is in our heart, and he's ready to give us whatever we want. Just like a child. The child tells its mother, I want to eat. And then it says, the next moment it says, I want to sleep. I want to go out and play. I want to watch television. So the mother has no idea what the child actually wants. So it doesn't know what to do with the child. But if the child says, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat, then it's much more likely that the mother will feed the child. Similarly, if we want so many things, and then we add to that Krishna, then Krishna doesn't know what we will really want. I want a house, I want a wife, I want a color TV, and a house by the sea. Om Jai Jagadisha Hari. Then Krishna doesn't know what to give us. But if we want Krishna, then Krishna will give himself to us. Then he'll gradually reveal himself to us if that's what we actually want. So Krishna consciousness, although it's a process, but it's a process of cultivating a desire to obtain Krishna and service to Krishna, and Krishna none different. Now Krishna, if we want to realize him in truth, Tatvena, we want to understand why he's taken birth and what his activities are. He tells us in Bhagavad Gita. He doesn't try to keep it a mystery. He says, Paritranaya sarunam vinashaya diskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavam yuge yuge. The Krishna comes mainly for three reasons. Paritranaya sarunam. The most important thing is he comes to help us become devotees. Or he says, protect the sadhus. His principal protection of the sadhu, or the sadhus, is by keeping us in Krishna consciousness. Although we may imagine that we're in difficulty sometimes, but the soul is never in difficulty, because the soul is transcendental. We can't say that when we're watching a horror movie and Dracula is about to bite someone's neck, that we're in trouble, because our neck is not being bitten. We're fine. You can check your neck during the movie and see, yeah, it's still there. It's all right. But because we think we're in trouble, therefore people watching a Dracula movie, watching someone's neck being bitten, might actually have a heart attack. Now the heart attack is real, but it was based upon something which is not factual. And nor does the soul actually become affected, even if he has a heart attack. The body becomes affected, but the soul within the body is unaffected. If we're riding in a car and we get into a car crash, certainly our car has been affected by the crash, but hopefully we're as safe as the passenger, as the driver. Although the owner of the car may become more affected by the crash than simply the person who's the passenger. If we think it's my car, you hit my car, how can you hit my car? And we jump out of the car, you hit me, you hit me. Calm down, sir. I did not hit you. I hit your car. You're all right. That's why you jumped out of the car. You weren't hit, it was your car was hit. No, you hit my car, my poor car. Look at my car. So as long as we misidentify ourselves with this body, whatever happens to the body, we become affected by it. But when we understand it's Krishna's body, it's not my body, then we won't be affected by it. We may take care of it on behalf of Krishna to utilize in Krishna service, but we won't become deviated from our Krishna consciousness simply due to our material circumstances. So to understand Krishna in truth, we have to understand that this body and everything belonging to the body actually belongs to Krishna. And therefore, we accept the body and we try to take care of it to utilize in Krishna's service. Dhruva Maharaj, he immediately engaged himself in Krishna's service because he understood that although he was 5 years old, he wanted to realize Krishna as soon as possible. So if we have that knowledge, that intelligence, that determination, then we can become more steady in Krishna's service by practice of developing our desire to obtain Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna recognizes that it's not very easy, especially in Kali Yuga, but in every yuga, it is not so easy to fix our minds upon Krishna. Although he recommends it, wherever the mind wanders, he says, Shnai Shnar Uparamed Buddhya Drita Grihitaya Atma Samstamana Kridva Na Kinchit Api Chindeya. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained with full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and nothing else. So the process is using our intelligence and fixing it upon devotional service, because it's through devotional service that Krishna reveals himself. There are 9 processes of devotional service, and if we engage in any of those processes, whether hearing about Krishna, or chanting about Krishna, or remembering Krishna, or serving Krishna, that this is counted by Krishna as devotional service. If one is successful in one path, one type of service, that's sufficient to reach perfection. When I was living with Vishnu Jan Maharaj, who was a sannyasi, then all he liked to do, well, besides eating prasadam, he loved prasadam, which I guess is service, is one service to Krishna and devotional service. But he especially liked chanting because he sung like a Gandharva. But later on, when we had a party called Radha Damodar, he had his own party where he'd go out and he'd just chant all day on the campuses. But the other party leader was Krishna Maharaj, and he was very enthusiastic because that's what Prabhupada wanted him to do, to distribute as many books as possible. But he couldn't get Vishnu Jan Maharaj's party to distribute books. As a matter of fact, when they were in LA to get Los Angeles together, Vishnu Jan Maharaj would go out and lead the Harinam all day long and night sometimes. And Krishna Maharaj is in charge of distributing Bhakti Godhead magazines. So one time Krishna Maharaj went to Srila Prabhupada and complained that all Vishnu Jan Maharaj wants to do is chant Hare Krishna. He wants to distribute Bhakti Godhead magazines. So Prabhupada smiled and said, Vishnu Jan Maharaj went to Bhakti Godhead by chanting. So chanting is also one of our 9 processes of devotional service. And also remembering is also one of the processes. There are 9 of them. If we perform any one of them, that will develop that's considered devotional service. And Krishna will reveal himself depending upon how steadily we perform that service and how enthusiastically we perform it. Just like chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna can be done simply because well, we're supposed to do it. That's nice. Sometimes we think, well, I don't want to go to the temple. I don't want to chant. Here's my today, here's my beads. The beads are so heavy, I don't think I can pick them up. They're especially heavy today. So I really don't think I can chant these names. Yesterday I chanted my rounds, but the beads were so heavy that I got tired today. It's a big, heavy task to chant Hare Krishna. So we can look at our beads in the morning and think, oh my God, another 16 rounds. So difficult. We can talk ourselves out of chanting Hare Krishna. Mind will tell us every reason why we should feel that it's a very difficult task. Yesterday I chanted Hare Krishna. It was difficult. I'm sure it's going to be difficult today. And if I can make it tomorrow, it'll be difficult tomorrow too. On the other hand, if we hear about the glories of the holy name and understand that this is the greatest opportunity to directly associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, and that it'll simply depend upon me, how I chant, what my experience will be. It doesn't depend upon Krishna. It's not that Krishna, where I'm chanting, he looks at me and says, here's the devotee, I don't like it or her face. I don't think I'm going to reveal myself to them today. Or I'm in a bad mood, why should why should I reveal myself today to them? Or I have enough devotees to take care of. What do I need this devotee for? I have plenty of service. Now, Krishna is always unlimitedly compassionate and loving, but it depends upon our attitude of chanting. If we think, like Srimati Radharani, when she gets up in the morning, then she thinks that today I'm going to get the opportunity to serve Krishna and to see him. Now, I may have seen him in the past, but it was just like a flash. But today, I'm actually going to get an opportunity to associate with Krishna. And therefore, she's unlimitedly anxious to go and serve Krishna. Similarly, her assistants, like Rati Manjari, when they wake up in the morning, they don't sleep very much, they immediately rush to serve Srimati Radharani. That enthusiasm is what actually creates the atmosphere, the loving atmosphere, by which they can experience the unlimited happiness and love that these Radharani and Srimati Radharani and Krishna have. Srimati Radharani, Krishna, and their devotees, they reciprocate with us according to our attitude. So if we're inquisitive, because that's one of the things we're trying to develop, what will be like today to experience Krishna? What is what great opportunity I have to experience unlimited happiness through the chanting of the holy name? That if I simply apply myself not only to pay attention, but to actually free myself from all anxiety and chant happily. And try to experience Krishna's presence when I'm chanting. Try to appreciate that the holy name and Krishna are non-different, and the presence of Krishna, then there's unlimited opportunity that my consciousness may experience something spiritual. So to put ourselves in a receptive mood and a happy mood, that in the presence of Krishna, when I'm chanting Hare Krishna right now, everything is actually perfect. Externally, the material world is always going to be problematic. we cannot expect any kind of perfection in the material world. But because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I should understand right now my life is perfect. I'm doing the most perfect thing possible right now. There can't be anything higher than what I'm doing. And therefore, I simply have to make myself receptive, give up all kinds of lamentation, what happened, and all kinds of hankering, what will happen, or anxiety about what will happen, and simply appreciate that by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our acharyas and their associates, I have this great opportunity to chant Hare Krishna. Similarly, when we have some service to do, if we remember that Krishna has given me the service to do, and I'm doing it just to please him, then the result will be that we'll naturally remember Krishna. And when we naturally remember Krishna, spontaneously remember him, that's the greatest opportunity to associate with Krishna. That's the greatest opportunity to remember Krishna. Because Krishna, with that attitude of trying to please Krishna, which is called love, then Krishna reveals himself on that basis. Then we can understand Krishna in truth, by experience. Then we can understand that Krishna did not take birth because he needs servants in the spiritual world. He came to look for some good help. Krishna did not take birth because he heard about the wonderful pizza that they have in Italy, and he wanted to take birth and experience it. But Krishna took birth in order to give ourselves an opportunity to understand him and associate with him, and ultimately develop a loving service attitude towards him. And that's what all his activities are about. And if we link ourselves with Krishna in devotional service, then we'll also develop the same desire to give others the opportunity to become Krishna conscious. Because when we do that, when we act as an instrument for Krishna in his service, then we get the greatest opportunity to also experience Krishna. It is not that when we give others the opportunity to serve, to become Krishna conscious, then we lose something. But actually, that means we become an instrument for Krishna, and that's when Krishna gives us the greatest mercy, the greatest revelations. That itself, to spread Krishna consciousness, he himself comes for that reason. Krishna does not have to come to this material world in order to practice devotional service. Nor does he have to deliver the conditioned souls because he lacks some help in the spiritual world. He comes because it's the greatest ecstasy that he experiences. Well, I don't know if it's the greatest, but as Srimati Radharani, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he expends his compassion by helping the fallen souls revive their loving relationship with Krishna, then that expansion of compassion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the ecstasy of seeing others becoming Krishna conscious gives him unlimited pleasure. So similarly, if we're in the same mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and we take pleasure to see others become Krishna conscious, that will expand our compassion, which is pleasurable in itself. And when we see others become Krishna conscious, then we'll experience not only Krishna's happiness, and that will make us happy. We experience Krishna's happiness of seeing others becoming Krishna conscious. And on top of that, then we'll actually experience happiness seeing how wonderful others are actually in Krishna's service. Just like most of us when we read Krishna book or we read Srimad Bhagavatam, then many of these stories are quite wonderful, and we can appreciate Dhruva Maharaj, a little boy of 5 years old, going into the forest and going through great austerities. Now, who would not like to meet Dhruva Maharaj and hear from him personally about his story of how he met Krishna? Or Prahlad Maharaj. If we met Prahlad Maharaj and he told us about what it was like to meet Lord Nrsingadev on the bank and how all the demigods were there, it would be quite amazing. Or what to speak of meeting the Pandavas, and they told us the history of the Mahabharata themselves personally, how they experienced it. Wouldn't that be exciting? So similarly, every devotee has their history with Krishna, and every devotee is having a pastime with Krishna to a greater or lesser extent. And especially those devotees who are chanting Hare Krishna, regularly worshiping the deities, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, doing service to spread Krishna consciousness, their lives are actually a pastime. And even innocent people, when we meet them in the street, when we chant Hare Krishna, or we give them some prasadam, or we give them some books, they're actually engaged in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. So to appreciate how, without even going to the spiritual world, we can be in the spiritual world just by serving the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't have to go anywhere else. As a matter of fact, it says that the demigods, they want to take birth in Ljubljana or in Russia or wherever, even in Washington, D.C. The demigods want to take birth so they can engage in this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. As a matter of fact, 5,000 years ago, well, actually 500 years ago also, the demigods actually took birth on this planet to engage in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And of course, we know that they took birth to engage in Krishna's pastimes. So we've also taken birth, and we also have this opportunity to engage in Krishna's pastimes. And there's no difference between Krishna's pastimes in Chaitanya Leela and the pastimes of Krishna in Krishna Leela. And there's no difference between those pastimes and the opportunity we have now to engage in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And the more we engage them, then the more we experience Krishna as he actually is. Now in the next verse, Krishna says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitri Yanti Pritri Vrataha Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Madhyajino Prima. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship me will live with me. So this is our choice. Where do we want to go? Human life is a preparation for the next life. Now, if we look at this, before we came to the Krishna consciousness movement, what kind of life, next life, were we being prepared for? I think most of us were not being prepared to go to the heavenly planets. What to speak of Krishna Loka. Just like they have festivals, and I was in Poland, and they have a big festival to worship the dead. I think they take a week off, and they go to the cemetery, and instead of bringing flowers to the deities, they bring flowers to the dead bodies. Now, of course, there's some kind of sentiment there, a little bit like a reflection of worshiping the Pitris, the forefathers. But the Pitris are in the Pitri Loka, and in Pitri Loka is a pious planet. But I think most of our forefathers weren't necessarily doing all pious activities. Therefore, modern civilization is more or less addicted to worshiping dead things. And therefore, they're preparing themselves to have a suitable body, like a ghost or a spirit, or something like that. There are some cultures, they actually worship the ancestors, but I don't know where their ancestors went. Just like in France, every year they have a big ceremony where they clean off the statue of Napoleon. There's a very big statue of Napoleon in Paris. Unfortunately, it's outside. So outside means that during the year, birds come and they make their offering to Napoleon throughout the whole year. But once a year, they have a ceremony for worshiping Napoleon, and therefore they climb up to the statue and they spend some time cleaning Napoleon so they can see what he looks like underneath the offerings that the birds make every year to him. And then one day a year, they worship Napoleon, offer him garlands, chant his glories, and then the next day the birds come back for their offering. So Prabhupada said that they're worshiping Napoleon, the statue, but they have no idea where Napoleon went. There's a very good chance that Napoleon is probably one of those birds coming back and making his offering to his statue during the year. So similarly, in this age especially, without Hare Krishna, without chanting the holy names, our destinations would probably not be very auspicious. Nor will anyone's destination be auspicious. Today, I'm a multi-millionaire or billionaire, but because of my sinful activities, I may take birth in a very unfortunate situation in my next lifetime. So this very brief lifetime, if I think I must make this comfortable and enjoy as much as possible, but it may set me back many millions of lifetimes before I come back to the new form of life. Therefore, Krishna will reciprocate with us whatever we want. And what we want will depend upon a lot about what glories we hear. As soon as we go on the internet and we hear from those who are not Krishna conscious, they'll either tell us the glories of buying something, or they'll put us in anxiety about how our material life is being threatened, how the dollar or the ruble or the pound or the peso is being threatened, and therefore we should be feeling threatened. That as the dollar gets devalued or as the euro gets devalued, then my life is being devalued. And as it goes up, then my life is born again, is refreshed. But if we hear about the glories of Krishna, about being Krishna conscious, then we'll actually understand what actually is valuable, what actually we should spend our time hearing about. What will actually help us, the soul. Because other than that, as Krishna says, if we worship the demigods, and if we go to the planet of the demigods, it's limited and temporary. Even Lord Brahma, who lives for 311 trillion years, 40 billion years, just a few extra thrown in there, an extra 40 billion years, that he's in anxiety that he's going to die soon. Of course, we're going to live forever because we have a long time. Poor Brahma, he only lives for 311 billion. I'm sorry, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. So he has a very short period of life. But we ourselves, we're fortunate. We're born on this earth planet during Kali Yuga, and we're probably going to live forever here. So even where we go to the heavenly planets, the duration of life there compared to eternity is very short. And if we worship the ancestors, we may go to the ancestors, but I don't know if I want to meet all my ancestors. When I grew up, I met some of my relatives, but I don't know if I want to meet the rest of them. The ones I met were enough. But if we worship Krishna, then we can experience Krishna. And that experience of Krishna will give us higher happiness than we can experience by any other worship. By nature, we're worshipers. We have to worship something. If we worship Krishna, then we'll develop actually our natural love for Krishna and our natural love for all of the entities. We'll be happy to see everyone. We'll be happy to see all of the entities. Just like I have one insect who lives next to me in the hallway. He's not very beautiful in my estimation. Of course, in his species, I think they all think he's very beautiful. I don't know how many, he has at least 100 legs, maybe more than that. I haven't been able to count them. And he just sits on my wall, in the hallway, sometimes. Now, I was thinking I've removed some of his relatives, but I thought, well, why bother, you know? He seems to be happy being there and he's not really disturbing me. So sometime I just walk by and I don't know if he notices me, but I notice him. So he's also Krishna's servant. He's on his path back to Godhead, although it may take him a little while. So just leave him alone. After all, he might even get some prasadam sometimes because he lives next to the refrigerator. And he certainly hears the holy name in the morning. I don't know how well I chant the holy name to him, how much he appreciates it, but he definitely hears it sometimes at least. So all of the entities are actually Krishna's servant, and it's our service to try to serve them in some way or another. Or as Prabhupada said one time, one devotee was assigned to, because in India, in Vrindavan, Prabhupada would give darshan, and guests would come into his room in the Krishna Balaram temple. Prabhupada had his house there next to the temple. And people would come in for darshan, and there would be always a devotee who would distribute prasadam. So one day a devotee was asked to distribute prasadam, but there were ants all over the sweets that were supposed to be delivered. So the devotee told Prabhupada that there are so many ants on the sweets, what should I do? So Prabhupada said, don't worry about it. They don't eat very much. So even an ant gets the mercy, because I think he probably tried to get rid of the ants because the guests weren't supposed to eat ants. We're not supposed to eat ants. And they let them eat a little bit of the prasadam and then invite them to go. Otherwise, they eat too much, they'll get intoxicated. We're not supposed to help people get intoxicated either. So if we look at all of the entities as St. Thomas was Assisi, Francis, St. Francis of Assisi. We look at all of the entities as our brothers and sisters and not be envious of them and try to even assist them. For as Prabhupada was one time, he called over Govinda Dasi and he showed her a little slug. And Prabhupada said, look at this poor thing, chant to it. Give him a little prasadam. Because our main business is not feeding insects, is to at least help the human beings, but we should be compassionate to all of the entities. Then we'll be able to, if we assist others, all of the entities, whatever their position is, in trying to become Krishna conscious, and Krishna will give us so much mercy also in order to do that. Krishna will empower us according to our need to serve others. If we have a big need to serve others, then Krishna will give us a lot of empowerment. If we only have a little need to serve others, then Krishna will give us little empowerment because we don't need any more than that. In any case, if our need is to please Krishna, then Krishna will give us all empowerment. So the last verse, before I ask for questions, is famous verse, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, Yome Bhakta Priyachati, Taraham Bhakti Paritam Ashnami Priyatatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I'll accept it. So bhakti is repeated twice in this verse because that's all Krishna really wants from us is love. Just like a father, he has so many resources. He may have a little child, but what can the child give the father? Whatever the child receives, he received from the father in the first place. But if the child gets some food and he asks the father to eat first in order to try to please him, then the father is very happy that his little child is lovingly offering him some food. So similarly, if we lovingly offer Krishna something, then Krishna will become very happy, although it is actually always Krishna's property. But because it's offered with love by his devotee, therefore Krishna becomes pleased by the offering. So we should not think that we have so much ability, we have so many resources, and therefore I'm very special. We should understand whatever we have has been given by Krishna, and that if I use it for Krishna service, then that's, for me, it's a special opportunity to try to please Krishna, to develop my love, the unlimitedly lovable person, Krishna. So I'll stop there and I'll thank you very much. Are there any questions? Nitya Seva Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Guru, please accept my humble obeisances. Oh, Guru Shri Prabhupada. Just one question. Like you said, most of us won't even make to heavenly planets, then what to speak of Krishna Loka. Most of us have spiritual desires, but at the same time attachment to material desires as well. So it means that most of us will come back again, and take birth in our devotee family to be able to continue our devotional service.
No, we should try to go back to Godhead, because devotional service and the kingdom of God are not different. So when we're performing devotional service, we should understand, practically speaking, we're already, to one degree or another, experiencing spiritual life. As far as what our next destination is, if we develop the desire, we can go back in this lifetime. We should not convince ourselves that preparing ourselves for my next lifetime. But if we do that, then we should at least pray as Prahlada Maharaj did, that let me take birth in the family of devotees, or I can go on hearing and chanting about Krishna. We shouldn't, as far as where we're going to go, we could go to the heavenly planets, but that will not necessarily be the best place for us to go. The best place, if we want to pray to go someplace, is to take birth in the family of devotees, where we can continue on with our auspicious Krishna consciousness. As far as going back to the spiritual world, that's our objective, but that's up to Krishna. As long as we're in the material world, we should try to fulfill his mission of helping ourselves and others become Krishna conscious. And that would be the best thing we can possibly do here. How much we make progress, where we're going next. We should try to be as sincere and as attentive as possible to the process, but we shouldn't worry about it because we're eternal. And that very shortly we'll be back with Krishna. Unfortunately, most people don't have that great opportunity. And therefore we should try to make others fortunate while we're here. In the spiritual world, one thing that we can't do is we can't help people become Krishna conscious. So there's an opportunity we have now that we don't have in the spiritual world. That is to bring Krishna's children back to the spiritual world. So there's a special opportunity that even Krishna himself comes to experience, saving conditioned souls. We have that same opportunity here too. Especially the most important conditioned soul in our life, namely ourselves, to save ourselves primarily, so we can save others too.
Thank you.
Bhakti Lera.
Харе Кришна, Гуру Махарадж. Спасибо вам большое за чудесную лекцию. Скажите, пожалуйста, как развить в себе энтузиазм в служении и на чем он должен быть основан, чтобы быть постоянным, а не волнами?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for a wonderful lecture. Could you please tell us how to develop enthusiasm within oneself and how to develop this enthusiasm that it does not come in waves, that it's stable and continuous?
That's explained thank you, Spasiba Bolshoi. That's explained in a book called Nectar of Devotion, as well as in a book called the Madhurya Kandambini. Matter of fact, all the books explain that. That's a process of purification. Or as Prabhupada writes, the art of Krishna consciousness is the art of focusing one's attention and giving one's love to Krishna. And in order to do that, as Krishna summarized in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we have to hear from devotees. Hear from the devotees and try to understand how to engage our lives, much chitta, much kita prana, bodhiantas parashparam. We have to get some hints how to utilize my prana, my life, as well as my chitta, my consciousness in Krishna's service. So as we hear and we get a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of understanding, and we put that into practice, and Krishna says that as he sees us, because he's always watching us, hoping that we make some progress, as he sees that we're trying to become steady in our service, we're trying to become enthusiastic, then he helps us by first of all giving us intelligence how to perform our devotional service more steadily and more enthusiastically. And then when he sees that we accept the intelligence he's giving us and try to apply that, then he personally, when he's pleased with us, he reveals himself to us. He reveals the knowledge that was at once theoretical. He gives us some understanding by experience of what actually that knowledge means. And as that process grows, then gradually the bits of the puzzle of what is Krishna consciousness come together, and then one day we'll see that everything, we'll be able to see Krishna everywhere and everything all the time. And we'll always remain enthusiastic and happy in Krishna consciousness. So we just follow the process the Prabhupada has given us, that our acharyas have given us. And if we do that to our heart and soul, then gradually steadiness and enthusiasm will come. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Let her go first. She raised her hand. Can you
Who?
raise your Ekadasi Devi Dasi? Can you raise your hand? Do you know how to raise your hand? Nirguna? You have a little thing there to raise your yellow hand.
So I can ask?
After Ekadasi.
Okay.
Devi Dasi? Yes, Levaprosi?
Харе Кришна, дорогой Гуру Махарадж, спасибо большое за лекцию. Я вот хотела спросить про проповедь. Ну вот, например, если нужно ли стремиться именно вот к распространению книг? То есть я вот участвую в харинамах, танцую, участвую в вайшнавских спектаклях, то есть в такой проповеди. То есть является ли это достаточным? То есть, например, для меня распространять книги пока тяжело. Я как бы участвую в харинамах и спектаклях. Нужно ли стремиться именно вот к распространению книг? Или можно заниматься такой проповедью?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for your wonderful lecture. So I have a question pertaining to the preaching. Do I have to push myself and try to distribute books? Because right now my service, which I feel comfortable with, is singing on Harinam, and also I play in a devotees theater. Do I have to push myself and try to distribute books, even though it may be not suitable for me at the moment, or that what I do as a service, Harinams and Vaishnava theater is enough at the moment?
Trying to distribute one book a week. Get a little taste for what book distribution is. Yeah, what you're doing is fine, but it's also good to get a little experience. Otherwise, we may think, well, this is very difficult, etc., etc. But when we put ourselves in a situation where we have to rely upon Krishna more than normal, then we get some special mercy coming from Krishna too. So try to experience a little special mercy. Try to distribute 1 or 2 books a week also and see what it's like. Pray to Krishna that he can help you, and he will help you. And then your faith in Krishna will develop so that whatever service you do, you'll always be happy doing it for Krishna. And Krishna will always utilize you as an instrument in that service. You're gonna? Short question.
Yes, Maharaj, because Srila Prabhupada was the disappearance yesterday, so I was like thinking he left his body, his body was emancipated. So how do we get the maybe psychological or this feeling? I have sometimes this feeling maybe he doesn't have Prabhupada like left his body like that. How do I know time for the next generation or any energy for the next generation to come to take care of us, except you understand?
Not really, but anyhow, I'll try to explain. It says he reasons ill who thinks that Vaishnavas die, or thou art living still and sound, that Vaishnavas die to live, and living spread the holy name around. So Prabhupada is always alive. Prabhupada never left. He doesn't die. It's like the sun. When the sun goes down, we may not see it, but it doesn't mean the sun has died. The sun's always there. So the acharyas are eternal. We're also eternal. The difference is that our acharyas are eternally alive, And by the process of Krishna consciousness, we're trying to become alive. So Prabhupada never left. He's there in his instructions. He's there in his deity form. He's there in his representatives as the devotees, as much as they follow Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is also there. So if we understand things properly, then we'll always have Prabhupada's association. Krishna never left Vrindavan. He was always associating with the Brajavasis through feelings of separation. So we actually want Prabhupada's association. Then Prabhupada was very willing to give it to us eternally. Thank you. I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Спасибо большое, Гуру Махарадж.
Hare Krishna.
Спасибо большое, Гуру.
Спасибо большое, Харе Кришна.
Шри Прохладананда